Welcome to our study in Psalms. This is session 13, and this particular lesson covers Psalm chapter 5. Of course, that's verses 1 through 12. This particular psalm is a psalm of David, and in the curriculum, it talks about this almost being like a morning prayer of David. I think that's because he says something in verse 3, "My voice thou shalt hear in the morning, O Lord." He's talking about going in the morning time to pray to God and how he's going to do that. And really, what's interesting about this particular psalm is it's a psalm of contrasts. You have kind of like multiple sections, like here's what David says he'll do, but people that don't do that are don't seek it's in terms of seeking the Lord, going to him in prayer, trusting in him. And then those who don't do that, those who are opposed to God. So you have like good, bad, good, bad, good. That's kind of like the pattern you see, almost musical, almost lyrical, which this obviously is. And so that's what you see in this particular psalm. And really, it's contrasting what those who trust in God will do and what those who don't trust in God will receive or will do. And so you just see here basically three contrasts. So this is a why message. We're trying to tell people why they should do what David's doing, why they should trust in God. So lesson in a sentence, every person should trust in God because of his righteousness. Because God's right and faithful and really predictable in the sense that we know what he's for and what he likes and what pleases him and what's right. And so we should trust in him because we know he's faithful and he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And there are reasons why when we trust in him, we receive good things. So here are three contrasts that point us in the direction of trusting in God because of his righteousness. The first contrast is this. We're going to see the contrast between those who call on him and those who don't. You see in verse 1, "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken to the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee and will look up." So you definitely see David giving the first of his day to the Lord. He's calling on the Lord. He's, and in that way, trusting in the Lord. He believes that God is hearing him, and there is a sense of looking to God as someone who he needs. Right? That's why he's calling him my King. It's unto him that he's going to pray. Then you see the contrast. Verse 4, "For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all the workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing." Leasing here is foolishness, or really more deceit, which is foolish, but it's the idea of deceit or lies. "The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man." It's interesting that like you can make a case here for faith being what God's pleased in, because David isn't saying that he's not laying out a bunch of things that he's done to make him righteous. Essentially, he's saying, I'm going to you, I'm calling on you, I'm talking to you, because essentially otherwise would be wicked or would be doing wickedly. So there's this faith aspect. He's calling on God. He's trusting in God. And those who don't do that end up doing evil and speaking leasing. And God is opposed to that. God is against that. And so David's not making the claim that he's never done wrong. He's making the case that he's trusting in God by calling on him. And so there's this contrast here. You can trust in God. He's a righteous God. And you can see that between what David believes will happen to him if he calls on him, and then what happens to those who don't call him and in turn do wrong. Then we see another contrast. It's very similar Contrast number 2, those who seek God, those who seek him, and those who don't. He says in verse 7, but as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship towards thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in the righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy ways straight before my face. I think it's very clear here. He's talking about seeking after God's ways, pursuing God's direction, asking for God. God, I want to go where you are, your house. I want to go where you're worshiped, your temple. I want to go in your direction. Lead me, Lord, in thy righteousness. There's that theme of righteousness again. And he's saying, because of my enemies, make thy way straight before my face. So you have what he wants to do, his seeking of the Lord, his seeking of God and his ways, wanting to go in God's direction. And then you see the contrast, verse 9, for there is no faithfulness in their mouth, talking about people, about his enemies, those who are not seeking God, not being righteous. There's no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulcher. They flatter with their tongue. That's a sepulcher is a grave. And he's saying death is coming out of their mouth. It's just this open grave. It's nasty, really. They flatter with their tongue, meaning they say things that they don't believe so that they can get what they want. Verse 10, destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. He's crying out for justice. He's looking for mercy from God. He wants to do the right thing himself, and those who are his enemies that are doing wrong, he wants them to pay for their wrongdoing. What an interesting thing to show up in the scriptures, that like if people choose not to trust in God, not to seek God, then the right kind of natural consequence of that is the right consequence of that is destruction. That leads to contrast number 3, those who obey him versus those who don't. Now, interesting, verse 11, it says, but let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. He doesn't say, let all who perfectly live out exactly right rejoice. No, it's those who trust in God rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee, for thou, Lord, will bless the righteous. What does God do with righteous people? With people who seek him? They're blessed. With favor thou will compass him as with a shield. There's this idea of righteousness shielding. Now, at the end of this particular psalm, we don't see the contrast. This is kind of, there's not a third contrast, and you can kind of just assume it's what he's already said. Those who don't trust in the Lord are destroyed. Those who don't trust in the Lord don't shout for joy. In the end, they weep in despair. They're not defended by God. They're not joyful in him. They're not blessed. There is no defense. There's no favor. They're destroyed. The contrast has almost already been said. So there's a blessing that comes with obedience, with trusting in God, with following his ways. And there's really consequences for those who don't. That's really the contrast. And so this particular lesson is helpful, I think, to point people to trust in God. And ultimately, there's none righteous, no, not one, right? When Jesus died, this great substitution was able to be made where God could give us his righteousness, Christ's righteousness, because Jesus took on our sin. So as we teach this lesson, we want to make sure we talk about the grace that's found in Christ Jesus and the righteousness that's given to those of us who put our trust in him. I hope this helps you think through the lesson. I hope you see the contrast here and that you apply this lesson to your life as you seek to teach it to your class. Hope that helps you.